Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Lenahan, principal of the middle school, and I'd like to introduce our assistant principals, Mr. Scott DeBellis, Mr. Andrew Colasuno. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I just want to begin with a little bit of an overview of the middle school historically, so you have a sense of where we've come from. Last year, our GO put together a 25th anniversary wall celebration. If you were here for back to school night, you got a chance to see students from the 90s, early 2000s, progressing into 2022, so a wonderful job. And there is a bit of history for the middle school and where we are today. Initially, it was developed to address the social and emotional needs of uniquely related to adolescents and pre-adolescents. And of course, the world never stays the same. Society and family norms continue to change, and obviously SEL needs increased throughout the decades for middle school students. Put that on top of, in the late 90s, early 2000s, New York State requirements ratcheted up with data testing, technology and innovations came about, and global connections, which we are all connected now. So it's added to the complexity with regard to addressing middle school students' needs. Strategic plan we have is a guide to meet the challenges of evolving social and technological norms while focusing, going back to the original core, on the academic growth, and now we're in a post-pandemic era. So just a couple of highlights of the strategic plan. I cherry-picked some of these. You know, social, emotional learning. We had a PD on Tuesday on anti-bullying and differences in relationships and human beings and how to handle that as a staff and how to get everybody to grow culturally in a safe environment. Basically, we have a small school here. The research tells you emphatically that the best approach to a school is having an enrollment of less than 400. We are fortunate in Tuckahoe to have that. You know, it's a great advantage. Of course, there are disadvantages to a small school, but overall, the research tells you students, are driven by relationships. When people care, when the students know people in the building care about them, they're going to learn much more effectively. So that impacts the school culture and life. We have a number of clubs and activities. Even though we're a small district, we do emphasize after-school activities. Mr. Colasuno will take you through that. Activities, we talk about, the Junior National Honor Society is now having a character Band-Aid drive. A lot of activities throughout the year. He'll take you through that more. We have an active GO. We had Spirit Week. They supported high school homecoming, so we really appreciate that. We're looking at increasing volunteer efforts. That's an ongoing effort there. And basically, the GO is really the communication between the students and the staff. We were real fortunate this year with class trips. Thank you for all the support from the PTA. I want to thank them for hosting this too. Balanced Adventures trip, they'll give you more information on that, but 6th, 7th, and 8th grade have gone and completed. It's about relationship building, taking risks, getting people in situations that are not common, in an academic environment, and getting people to cross bridges. So positive choices, we emphasize that in our curriculum. I'll give you an example, ELA in the literature selections, character development, what characters could do differently. It's all part of our program history, obviously. It speaks for itself. We obviously, as I mentioned, decision-making is a critical component in the middle school, and anti-bullying, making good choices, decision-making on the internet, digital, making sure everybody's safe digitally, and making positive choices in school and out of school. Contemporary learning, the district initiative for the past 4 years has been more toward project-based. The research will tell you that students learn by doing, not by sitting and taking notes. Research also tells you that students prefer to sit and take notes, most of the time. So you have to really get them motivated to really like what they're doing as an instructor, and we're working on that with professional development. Our teachers have made great strides. Math and Visions program, we have an alignment now with Cottle. You have it in the 7th grade. It's basically a problem-based, visual-based math program. We introduced vocabulary.com on Tuesday's conference day. Basically, we looked at the data and saw that we can address vocabulary needs in the district with this program. It's something we want to work on and making our students perform better. Visual literacy, this is an ongoing really goal within the middle and the high school. It's a different world now. The visual medium has superseded the textual medium. Just look at your phone and you see what you see. Students have to really be able to assess and address visual elements in making decisions. So that's part of really of ongoing instruction. And student choice reading, each classroom has specific libraries. Reading has decreased society-wise, the past 25 years for obvious reasons. Our goal is reading is still a critical component. Students read what they're interested in, so we want to give them motivation to keep reading. And once they develop the skill of reading, they will obviously use that for other disciplines. Moving along, diverse learners. Basically, we have blended instruction. Everybody learns differently. The research will tell you that. Teachers import a number of modalities, whether it's visual, technology, going back to direct instruction, group work, pair and share. We've introduced iReady last year, basically as a component to see how we're doing in reading and math from a standards-based approach. IAS and RTI at the middle school, we're actually doing more implementing RTI within the EIS program, using it based upon the iReady results. That will be an ongoing goal over the next year. Tuckahoe Learning Center for students who may not be able to stay after school. Students may have different challenges. We have the Learning Center at the library for students to come and get homework help. On another scale, to students who like to be challenged, we have a debate team that is very, very, going to New York City, going against top teams in the region. Our Science Olympiad has been heralded. I believe we took 4th place 2 years ago. The students, everybody's involved, so it's an opportunity for students to stretch themselves with those. Professional learning, teachers are learning how to evaluate and use data in their instruction, and also not only individually with students, but systemically. So that's an ongoing goal, really, on self-improvement. Tech tools, I'm very proud of this district. I've been here a while, and very long time, actually. And decades ago, we were the first to go one-to-one with Chromebooks. So we've been the leader since then. We now have interactive whiteboards. Summer PD, we had 13 teachers from the middle school, high school, take extensive PD, 8-day training, basically using that it's project-based, but it's also learner active, using technology to infuse within their classroom. So hopefully, we're looking to go 21st century with professional development over the summer. Professional development for 1 day has its benefits, but this was total immersion by their teachers for 8 days. Interactive assessments. I don't know when you graduated from middle school or high school, but basically it's all different now. Teachers are able to assess in real time with technology. Procedures in the classroom are much more efficient. Turning in papers is just hitting the send button. Remember, the teacher used to walk around and collect the papers. There's a gain in instructional time there. Basically, visual literacy, as I mentioned before, that's an ongoing objective within the classrooms. Academic overview, just to give you a brief overview of everything we offer. And this is basically to give your student a foundation for high school. Science, grade 6, they do the methodology. Grade 7 is living environment. Grade 8 is physical science. ELA, it's writing mechanics. Grade 6, literary elements, trying to develop a love of literature and working on writing essays. We have the writing revolution in this district. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but basically about 7 years ago, we got a grant at the high school level, and we brought in, it's really a strategy to really improve writing. What it does is it gets students to really think about the mechanics while they are in the content of writing. And so it raises critical thinking. It also raises the value of mechanics in writing, which is very challenging for students to connect. So as we progress within the English department, basically you go to a higher level, more complex grammar in the 7th grade, and obviously you go to critical thinking and literature in the 8th grade. Math, we talked about in Visions at 6 and 7. We offer algebra and math 8 at the 8th grade level. World language, obviously it's an introductory in the 7th grade. They get a high school credit for 8th grade world language, so you're aware. Obviously dealing with culture, language, grammar, communication, listening and speaking. Music, basically the band uses standard-based learning. We have a book that Mr. Evans follows, obviously with strings that coming up from Cottle. There's a program there. And chorus, basically it's music history, choral introduction, general music, and obviously introducing technology in music. STEM, basically it's an introduction in the 6th grade. 8th grade, we get to project-based, which is really a foundation for the high school. We have a number of projects in the high school that are electives. We have engineering and physics. We have architecture. We have an entrepreneur course. So the idea of STEM in the middle school is really a launching pad for the high school. Social studies, it's ancient civilization in the 6th grade. It's the first half of American history up to the Civil War in the 7th grade, and Reconstruction post to the current times in the 8th grade. Art, obviously they're working on colors, blending, imagery at a basic level. If you walk around the building, you'll see some of the middle school art. It's fantastic. Physical education, they work on team building, fine motor skills, gross motor skills. Everybody's in a different spot. Geography, it's really basically with the terrain and the physical characteristics in the 6th grade. 8th grade, it's more project-based. I'll give you an example. 8th grade geography, I observed a lesson where students had to pick a country to really to appeal to the executives of Disney to have a pavilion at Epcot. So the research involved basically was geographic. What is your, what terrain, how does the geography affect your culture? How does the geography affect your standard of living? How does the geography affect, basically, your way of life? That's part of the presentation. There was some economics to it too. So students did a presentation as they would in a business proposal. If you're in the business world, you know what I'm talking about, or any of your disciplines. So we have a number of support classes, obviously under the special ed category, which is a critical component. I have 3 children at home who have graduated from special ed programs, and they're doing well. We really do emphasize, the total success for students, merely meeting their potential. So moving along, school safety. Years ago, you didn't have to include this in any coffee or a presentation. However, it's on everybody's mind. It's a priority. I'll ask Mr. DeBellis to come up and address some of the things we're doing in school safety.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Like Dr. Linehan said, school safety years ago, even back 20 years ago when I started, this was not a focus, but it's on the forefront of everyone's mind due to different conditions and different incidents that we've been seeing throughout the country. We've worked very hard over the last 7 years that I've been here, I think, to try to create a culture of school safety and making sure that the mindset of all staff members and students alike are focused on safety and ensuring that, you've heard the slogan, see something, say something, looking for things that are out of place, drilling. You can see up there, actually, you can see up here, there's a couple different components that we focus on, and I'll just touch on them. Safety drills. This is a requirement by New York State. Throughout the course of the year, we're required to hold 12 different safety drills, a combination of evacuation drills as well as lockdown drills. We do additional drills on top of that just to ensure that we are prepared. I say it all the time to the students and to the teachers, you cannot prepare when an emergency occurs. It is too late at that point. We need to prepare way ahead of time, and it needs to be ongoing. So for that reason, you can see up here at our faculty meetings every month, this is a portion of our faculty meetings. We will talk about safety, we'll review procedures, we'll look at tabletop exercises, and we'll make sure that we are prepared and look at different scenarios. There's the what if, and the what if is great because it helps us think about how would we handle that. Case reviews, looking at all of the different, unfortunately, incidents that happen throughout the country is a way that we learn, right? When we make mistakes or unfortunately, others have made mistakes, we can learn and take away from that. So that is a focus and an emphasis of what we do. Daily security. You can see we're fortunate. Our community as well as our Board of Ed and our superintendent have invested in the technology and the equipment that we need in order to make the school safer. Cameras, key fobs, that's already been done down at Connell. We're waiting on the parts to come in. There was a 49-week wait, for all of the different supply pieces that they need, but that's in the works. So we will be changing over from traditional keys to key fobs, which will help in the event that we need to lock down. It saves time. One of the things that we've taken away from all of these different activities is, God forbid, we have an active shooter or you have some type of a event, time is of the essence. So even if it's 5 seconds here, 10 seconds there, that adds up. So those different investments in the security of our building and the students and staff is paramount. So I thank them for that. Like Dr. Linehan mentioned, on our superintendent's conference day on Tuesday, we had Lieutenant Rosenberg from Eastchester Police Department. We also have our school resource officer, Officer Minio, and they delivered what's called a civilian response course. And this course is, again, it's primarily designed for people that are not in education, because educators are typically trained much more than the average civilian. But there's always pieces to take away, and there's always pieces to learn. Observation, reaction, mindset, learning how to think about things in a different way. We're fortunate that we've been able to hire security monitors here, and about half of them are retired police officers. So they have training, they have formal training, and they're able to transition that over to working with youth and adolescent as well as adults. So we're very fortunate for that. We have Altaris, who is our consultant agency. You might not know, but we have to, throughout New York State, complete a building emergency response plan that has detailed information about our building, about our protocols, how we handle different information. Altaris is tremendous in helping us prepare. They will do assessments with us and identify different areas that we need to improve on, as well as provide professional training. We have a building emergency response team, as well as a district emergency response team. I sit on both of those. I work with Mr. Casson, he's the chairman of the board, but Dr. Goodman, myself, we create agendas, we look at different items, and then we try to build our training around that in the different areas that we've identified. Agency relationships, it's paramount for us to have good relationships with the local police department, the fire department, EMTs, because unfortunately, and it might not always be an active shooter situation, traditionally it might be something more of a student injury. You know, you could have a head injury outside on the field, and knowing how to handle that is important. So we have an excellent relationship with them. The haunted house is a great example. You know, we had a tremendous, I think we had to have close to 1,000 people come through. And, you know, that is a difficult thing to pull off, but if we didn't have their relationship and their trust and us working alongside, I think it would be very difficult to pull off events like that. So, again, just quickly to recap, this is something that we will continue to focus on. It's something that is paramount in order for us and our students. Now, there are other aspects to this as well. We focus on that physical training, or at least that's what I focused on right now. But there is also the students feeling safe when it comes to school with regard to bullying prevention and with regard to different incidents that occur at school. Karen Santucci and the Student Assistance Services delivered a 2-hour PD to our teachers and staff on bullying prevention. And that's something that we are going to be putting together, a parent workshop, where she'll deliver some of that information to us as well. Question? There is. It's actually something that the CDC just fairly recently, within the last few years. Again, basically bullying is when there is an imbalance of power. Okay, and this is something, I'm glad you asked that, and this was something that she focused on, right? That word bullying has been used interchangeably, and there is a big difference between bullying and conflict, right? You will have conflict, and adults have it. Unfortunately, you go on Facebook, you go on social media, and you see the things that, you know, even adults are saying sometimes. So understanding that and looking to find, you know, a way to resolve conflict, right, with students, teaching them that skills. Like Dr. Linehan had mentioned, that interpersonal skill and relationship is important. Teaching empathy, teaching compassion, you know, trying to build that skill set so that they're able to, you know, work things out. And a lot of times, especially as a middle school student, they haven't developed that skill set yet. You know, so between the guidance department, between Mr. Calasuno, myself, Mr. Sullivan, our psychologist, we will always try to resolve those issues and teach the students how to resolve. You know, we model that behavior for them. You know, we will try to lead them through a series of prompts of how you can do things better, right? Because we're going to make mistakes. Students are going to make mistakes, adults, but if we learn from the mistake, I think that that's paramount, and that's what they need to take away, okay? Not to make light of this by any means, but on Monday morning, I am as good as Bill Belichick when it comes to play calling at football games, right? 2020, you know, hindsight is always 2020. And, you know, Media, I think, unfortunately, spins things sometimes. We don't know all of the pieces of it, but you're right, there are some warning signs that they found. And through our training that we actually just had, when it comes to the profile of a person who commits, and they're getting away from even active shooter, and they're calling it active murder, because people are using different instruments, right? They're using cars, they're using different weapons. Schools predominantly have seen shooter events, but there is no profile, and that obviously makes it much more difficult. There are students with different challenges, whether it be emotional challenges, whether it be, I think, even family and stability challenges. So, you know, one of the big benefits to me of being in a small school is that we get to know our students very well. So you come in, you know, we say students, we greet them by their name, and you all of a sudden see that a student is having a difficult time. And that's when you can now intervene and say, hey, listen, and it might not obviously be at the end of, you know, committing a violent act, but it might just be, you know, they're going through a very tough time. So I think the relationships that we build with the students, the teachers predominantly, right, and trying to make sure the teachers understand that importance, and it is trickle down. So what we learn and what we try to instill with the teachers, you know, they do a fantastic job of being able to connect with those kids. And then obviously it's the relationship with the parents, reaching out and explaining, listen, you know, we're seeing some behavior, or we're seeing things that, you know, are a little bit worrisome to us. And then starting to either assist or put them in touch with different resources in the community or even outside if it's not available, so that they can get that professional help that's needed. Yep.
Which seems to work, but as you get older, it becomes a little more awkward, and you move more into your groups, and so that activity is sort of working on the student level.
Yep. You know, and that's why I think even looking at the different experiences that we try to create, and I'll give you a quick example with the Boundless Adventures, right? Students at 30 feet up in a tree. And, you know, and I'll be honest, as I crossed over into 40 and started going past that, you know, vertigo started setting in as I got older, and I'm saying, what happened here? So you would see instances of students being up there, you know, and all of a sudden kind of freezing a bit. And you would watch another student come over and try to help them, right? And that's the empathetic skill that we're trying to develop. So those experiences for the kids, I think, are what will create that culture, you know, and we're lucky because, you know, are there examples or instances of students being bullied or potentially, you know, being unkind to each other or having conflict with other kids? Yes, you're going to see that in schools because that's a representation of society, right? But I think it's minimal. I think, you know, unfortunately, people, when you have a lens and something bad happens, the spotlight goes on it, and sometimes, like I said, with media, they make it seem bigger than it is. So you're going to have examples of it, but I think that there are a lot more examples of the students, like you said, you know, helping each other, stepping in, being a friend, you know, not letting, I'll give you another quick example. The cafeteria, we don't ever let a student sit by themselves. You know, so we have seen examples of students, you know, maybe it's a new student, maybe it's an E&L student, you know, that their language, but we have enough students, you know, we're diverse enough where we can have other students step in and assist that. So, you know, I think we try to do a great job of making sure that everyone feels included. And our climate survey, I think, also represented that. You know, there were 95% of our students that said they feel connected to an adult inside of this building, which is great. Now, one of the things that we then worked on from Dr. Goodman and Dr. Linehan was connecting with that other 5%. Because you say 95 is great, but guess what? 100 is better. So, you know, creating and looking at all of these pieces, I think, are what ultimately will develop that culture. And I think we've done a good job, and I think we can always do better. So we'll continue to look at that. And now, obviously, I think work with the families and try to make sure that we address that as well. Inside of health.
And how you're working with students to be able to do what Penny was saying. You know, you're teaching that at home. Obviously, things start at home.
Yeah, I agree.
But we have some homes where that's not
So like you said, I think, besides what?
Besides the balance trip or whatever they think.
Right, that's an experience as opposed to training or education. You're right, through the health curriculum, there are a number of different pieces that they will review with students go over, looking at healthy relationships, looking at skills that are gonna connect interpersonally and dealing with that, so I think between hopefully looking at project-based learning and being able to use those opportunities, that's something that we will try to develop more of. And I agree with you. I think that it all starts at home, right? You need that foundation at home. And unfortunately, some students don't have it. So trying to create that through even parent education is going to be paramount, right? That's why I think we're also looking to connect with other agencies and say, who is someone, and again, not just to do it. I'm not a huge fan of having an assembly just to have it, right? It needs to be engaging. It needs to be something that also could continue on and you could progress. So you don't just have a one thing. I think that was also during our training with Karen Santucci and her organization. They talked about, the one and done assemblies are not effective, and the research shows it over and over again. So I think it's creating or looking at relationships with different organizations that we can. But again, realistically, there is an investment in that, right? It costs money. So, I know that obviously we are constrained. So trying to balance how do we bring those things in while also accomplishing, I think is what we try to continue to do. And we'll continue to do that as we move forward. But it might mean more of an investment, from the districts in order to have those programs be able to come into the building.
Well, that's why I asked that question, because it's so important. Like, I think that, I'm just speaking as a parent, not as a board member right now. Like I said at the workshop that we had, I think our district, as a school-wide community, has shown our commitment through the bonds that we, approved, and we have a tremendous community of parents, and I even think people outside of our, we have kids right now in the schools who continue to stay connected, really supporting our efforts as a district, right, and whatever we try to do. And, I'm holding, me personally as a mom, like I'm holding the district accountable to the investment that we are making and seeing the results of those investments. I think it's just really, really important. Data through, even the murmurings that we hear out in the community. I just wanted to stay positive and know that there is movement, that there is progress, and that we're doing what we say we want to do with the investment that we are making as a community. I just think we have the best community. I'm biased, I know.
I don't think anyone will disagree with you here either.
I think we really, really do, and I've been here for 10 years, so I've seen the shift. It's so much better than what it used to be, truly. So I just want to see it continue on that.
Absolutely.
That's my biggest thing. Also, a quick question. In some of the training that is being provided for our students, does it involve any role playing? I'm just curious about that because as a former teacher, role playing is always a really good way to get students to actually employ some of the things that we're trying to do so that they can, have some experience or some idea of how to execute.
So I'll just kind of end on a couple things because I know I'm kind of taking Dr. Linehan's spotlight. Number one, I'm going to ask too, Mr. C, because obviously he was our health teacher for a number of years and did a fantastic job. So I'm sure in terms of curriculum-wise, he can answer that. I think some of the pieces with data, social emotional data is difficult sometimes to collect, right? You look at, though, the experiences that we create in terms of clubs and activities and teams. Sometimes that anecdotal data is going to be what we also have to look at, right? And I agree. I think over the years it has improved significantly. You go to games, right? You go to whatever game, basketball, volleyball, soccer, football, and you see that student body turn out to support their classmates. So I think that's a piece of anecdotal data. You look at the clubs that we've invested in, right, with the district, and have increased that number of clubs. And one of the things that we focused on, I think, this year is making sure every student is at least we attempt to get them involved with a club so that they can have those experiences, because a lot of that also occurs with peers as they're involved in those situations as well. So I think as we continue to do that, that will add to the student's experience of school, right? Years ago, it was all academic, but now over the years, they've realized, especially with adolescents in middle school, that they need those other experiences. And it's not strictly just sitting in there and taking notes for 60 minutes, or testing. It's about, like you said, putting them in different situations and letting them learn and adapt over the course of the year, so that as they move forward, they have that skill set and that they are prepared to enter the world. So I think we'll continue to focus on that. We'll continue. I mean, Mr. C has done a phenomenal job of making sure that the kids know what's available. And even if they don't necessarily want to get involved, trying to push them a little bit to get involved. Sorry, C. But, and again, absolutely. Yeah. Because, those experiences are what I think students take a lot away from, right? So we want to make sure that those continue and that we add to those as we go. So agree 100%, Dr. Joe. Anything else, or I'll turn it over to Mr. C? Oh, right there.
Thanks. Thanks for those questions. Just as a follow-up, it's a great segue. The middle school team concept. One of the ways we do implement what we're all just talking about, I'll give you an example. We went to the board meeting in October. I think it was 95%, students connect, feel comfortable in the building. And, the board actually said, well, what about the other 4% or 5%? What are you doing? So, good question. And this is where we all work together. So basically, in the past, about 2 weeks ago, middle school teams met and had enrollment of each grade. So basically went through every student in every grade to see where we were at as far as relationships, looking for the 3%, 4%, and also we have new students coming in. So how do we, adjust with that? That was in follow-up to the climate survey and how we can get better. We're going to be taking a climate survey before Thanksgiving, hopefully, and we'll just do the same thing. I think now it's culturalized. Every year, the middle school teachers will meet as teams and review every student in the building to make sure there's a connection somehow with them. On an ongoing note, the implementation on relationships, communication, the middle school does allow for greater collaboration and continuity with the staff. So the staff meets twice a month by grade level and actually discusses students. The point of how do you know when something's up? Well, a teacher in social studies may see something and, they're doing this 25 other kids, and then the math teacher sees something else and says, by the way, did you notice with so-and-so? You're right. Maybe we should, and guidance is there. Ms. DeFrancesco does a great job with Mr. Solomon running the meetings, basically by student, by need. It could be academics, it could be social emotional, it could be observational, depending on the need and the time of the year. So they meet bi-weekly, and it's a systemic approach. And there's follow-up. 3 weeks later, well, we talked about so-and-so, what's going on now? Are things better? Have we heard from, the mother came in, have things gotten better? Those type of things. So there's a system in place. It's not perfect, but we're doing the best we can really to supplement the discussion we had. Mr. C is going to come up, and maybe you could talk about some of the things in health, the role playing, the question you had regarding that.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? I'm going to start with the clubs and sports and other offerings and activities, but then I will follow up on some of the SEL-related questions that you may have. So as far as our clubs go, we do offer a wide variety of clubs here at the middle school. They hit on different areas of the educational process. A few of the ones that I do want to hit on this year, we have worked to expand our audiovisual club. So one of the things is we've connected our audiovisual club with our athletic department, and we've started to integrate student announcers at our athletic events and competitions. So senior Jeremy Reed has been awesome. He's been at all the soccer games and football games, and he's really done a great job. So we're looking to expand that during the basketball season as well. Our debate team was down at Nightingale Bamford School in New York City over this past weekend. They competed in their first tournament. It was a 4-round tournament against schools from both public and private sector, and they really did a great job. So Ms. Mosa and Mr. O'Connell run that program and do a great job. Our diversity club has been celebrating Heritage Month. So Ms. Ferguson, who came up from Cottle this year, has really done a great job with that. So far, we've highlighted Hispanic Heritage Month and Italian American Heritage Months, where we have 2 walls that on our way up to the gymnasium, where they highlight the histories, cultures, and contributions of those cultures and of those heritages to this country and beyond. And then the rest of the clubs up there, our student government organization has really taken on some life also. Ms. Benedetti has done a great job. We held elections this year. She's involved in every event that we do. So most recently we had a 8th grade night watch where the PTA donated this beautiful telescope, and we were outside and we viewed different planets and the moon, and it was really a nice event, and we're looking to do another one in the spring and really expand it maybe to either 9th or 7th grade to get a little bit more participation. But our GO is out there and celebrating and selling hot cocoa and things like that, so it really brings the little life to the events that we hold. As far as our sports here at the middle school, I would say that when you look at a lot of these smaller school districts in the area and throughout the section, I would say we do have one of the more robust programs here at Tuckahoe, whether it be at the modified or varsity level, and we're looking to expand on these programs as well, depending on obviously enrollment and the participation rates. But basically we broke it down by season. Some of our newer additions, so we did implement modified cheerleading this year, so they had a sideline season and now they're going to have a competitive season. Ice hockey opened up where they do have a modified team that's merged with Bronxville, Eastchester, and Edgemont, so we're looking forward to that. And last year we implemented modified track, and we are looking to implement girls and boys lacrosse moving forward this year. So those are some exciting activities and events, and thankfully now the Cottle Field will hopefully help us out practices and things of that nature. But the town of Eastchester has also been great in their collaboration with us. That ties back to Mr. DeBellis' conversation about partnerships, and it's really been a great collaborative effort. Some of the other activities, I know Dr. Linehan and Mr. DeBellis mentioned field trips, so the Boundless Adventure field trip was amazing. I do want to let the parents know I've been working with Ms. Benedetti, who also coordinates our trips, and we are really looking at some exciting activities after the weather passes in the early spring and late spring to do some we'll say possibly overnights or something to that effect, but going back to sort of where things were pre-COVID. Further, we do have on the 17th, talking about speakers and programs coming in. On the 17th of this month, we do have Volunteer New York coming in. So one of the initiatives that we're really looking to build upon is volunteer offerings and activities for our middle and high school students. So Volunteer New York is going to come in. A few of the things they're going to talk about are, positive action, community building, and how this can tie to personal growth. So as they get older, how the importance of volunteering, and we spoke about empathy and skill building, that this is one of those areas. I've also worked with the PTA to come up with a spreadsheet of volunteer opportunities. That spreadsheet has been shared on our morning announcement, so there's a link when the students open up their Chromebooks every morning, as well as we posted it to our websites. But I will do a Blackboard Connect and send that home as well, so the parents have an opportunity to look at the variety of volunteer opportunities that we have in our local community, and we're going to look to expand beyond just the local community as the months go on. Does anyone have a question on clubs, sports, activities, anything that I just went through? Okay, so, and just to circle back to the questions on SEL a little bit, so as Mr. DeBellis mentioned, I did teach health here for the past 9 years, and a few of the programs that we did bring in over that time, and Dr. Goodman, Dr. Linehan, and the board have really supported. Rethink is a major initiative, so it's a social emotional learning program that we integrated into our health curriculums over the past 3 or 4 years or so. It's a great program that provides you with immediate access to lesson plans and activities, videos, all that sort of stuff. So one of the things we're looking to develop is a common language amongst the programs. So what helps is that our teacher, now Mr. Pizzuti, who I've helped with mentoring over the last few months, is really trying to make that connection between our middle school students and our high school students, so there's some form of a common language. So we are going to be rolling out parent letters and letters to our other teachers, so everyone has an awareness of what we are working on within those classes. It's hard, you know, in the high school and the middle school, you see the health teacher for either a quarter or 1 year of your high school experience, so it's important that we get that common language in place before they leave middle school so that they're prepared for what they might experience at the high school level. Also, one of the other programs that I partnered with was the One Love Foundation. It's located in Bronxville. It's all about relationships and healthy versus unhealthy behaviors within those relationships, so it ties into that social health component. So he has not gotten to that piece of the curriculum yet in the high school, but we are. I'm going to be transitioning him to working with that foundation. They have a great website if you want to look it up, but they do a great job, and it's something that's right here in our local community. As far as the I guess skits or role-playing activities that was brought up. One of the things that I did see so far this year that I was really excited about was I went up to our health classroom, and they were actually working on public service announcements and PSAs as it has to do with some of those relationship-building skills, and I think that that's a huge piece and a great start, and that's something that I will be speaking to our new health teacher about, is expanding some of the role-playing and skit and demonstrating the skills, not just talking about it, but actually performing those skills and demonstrating it. And I think the PSAs are important because when you get recorded, it's a whole different ball game than when you're just kind of out and about without someone. So when you watch yourself and how you act and your mannerisms and your nonverbal gestures, I think it's really important, something that everyone can get better at. So that's a little breakdown. All right, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, the state test is a snapshot, basically at a specific time. It's based on the state curriculum, but I think it's one moment. Some students don't do as well on standardized tests. It's just right here. I'm looking at one. It's an indicator. That's why I would look at it, and basically, I think how they do in school is much more significant. There are many more variables involved. Yeah, well, I think, the pandemic did impact, but we could do a better job with that too. I think, that's why I'll give you an example of vocabulary.com, which I spoke about. I think vocabulary now is being diffused, in society. We just talked about common language. Also, what I think also when students aren't reading as much coming up, not just in Tuckahoe, but everywhere. That's just a societal thing. The parents here do a great job, and the teachers do a great job. That's why we have the classroom libraries to get them interested in reading. But vocabulary comes from reading, and nationally, reading is down. So we're trying to address that at every level.
I think the other part of that was asking in middle school or some of the advanced classes that are available to students.
Well, I think in the curriculum I went through, I think it's a preparation for the high school. Teachers differentiate. They use the blended instruction. We have some outstanding students. The project-based is a differentiation. It is advanced in a regard that, I'll give you an example. Some of the projects are middle school projects, and some of the students, shoot for the stars. That Disney presentation I saw could have been to Walt himself. It was that good. And so, I think within the assignments and the learning in the classroom, and that's what technology is, a great facilitator of differentiation, that students can go, whatever level they're at, and the teachers can push them to the next level. In the past, it was much more difficult for an instruction, but now with technology, and we talked about visual medium, it's all there for students to really take off and reach their potential. And then at the high school, obviously, there is advanced. So, another thing is you want students to be at their own pace, especially we talked about the adolescent and how they're going through changes. And one of the things, as adults, we're not totally consistent, and we're fully mature. So basically, for a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, on a consistency basis, they're still learning that discipline. And we're all learning it still as adults. But I think that's really so you want them to really not put so much pressure on them. And we do have high school courses. I mentioned world language. We have algebra and earth science. So, all right.
Just as a follow-up to that, because I've had middle school as well, so we don't have, which is what I'm going to get at, we don't have advanced math or advanced science anymore.
No. I think, correct. Yeah, but also the clubs are another opportunity. And that debate team is very, very high level, I mean, without question. You know, the Science Olympiad, again, I'm sure there's students in there who are interested in science. You know, I suspect some are there because their friends are there, which is perfectly fine. But some are really into, you know, we have a number of high school graduates who are now, you know, in the science field and are majoring in science in college. So it all starts at the middle school. Any other questions? Okay. All right.
What's the update on the library and?
Facilities, I was waiting for that. It's, well, first of all, I think the patience and the support of the community and the students and the teachers, the board has been fantastic. You know, you go to turn on the news, you know, I see Anthony, who's in charge of, you know, facilities, our consultant, who works with our great custodians. But I said, where's the steel? And the steel is here, you know, but we expect the cafeteria, hopefully, you know, mid-December, and the library there somewhat thereafter. With the cold weather coming, they're correctly focusing on the cafeteria. So I think everybody is just really grateful that the community has supported this initiative, and they're all looking forward to it. And, you know, next coffees will be in the library. Usually this is not the, you know, I actually delayed it because, you know, I was hoping, but, you know, and look, I think everybody's just been understanding, and the kids have been amazing. So, and the construction team, I laid it out in August on the do's and the don'ts, and they have been very diligent in, you know, you don't want to walk around the school without a badge here, you know, no matter what you're doing. So, so everybody's been supportive. Hopefully that will continue. I look forward to a great new facility.
I just have one more comment. I just want to say thank you for locking down on phones.
Sorry?
Locking down on phones.
Oh.
All the use of phones with the kids.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know,
During the school day, I appreciate that a lot. And I know that you're a little more lenient at lunch and recess time, but I appreciate that.
yeah, we try to, you know, obviously as a high school principal too, you know, giving kids respect and responsibility and understanding that you have responsibility with the privilege, and please don't abuse it. But I think 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, you know, it's better, like, there's enough going on in their lives that they don't need to be interrupted. You know, we all know we're addicted a little bit to ourselves, so I don't have to explain that to anybody in this room. So I will tell you, when I first came here, you know, the phones came out, the teachers were ballistic about what's with these phones, how do these kids, how can they be so addicted? And now, if I leave the house and my phone's in home, I'm turning around. You know, so we're all, you know, it's human nature. Any other questions?
Final thing, I see drama improv. Is there going to be a school play, like a high school play?
Yeah, for sure. And that's, I will tell you this, you know, that's one of the big advantages of the small school. You know, that you get an opportunity, you know, organically leadership comes because we're small, you know, and, you know, running for office, if you have a school of 1,000 kids, you've got 20 people running for vice president. You know, I know for me, I went to a school like that, it was a little intimidating. I didn't win, but that's another issue. So those are the things when you have just 2 people, or maybe sometimes with, you know, only 1 person's running, and that's fine. You know, that's all good. And, you know, same thing with the play. You know, you may not be interested, I'm shy, I don't want to get up there, but you can get in, you know, in the crew. You can help out if you have a skill. And the teachers are all, you know, high school teachers and middle school teachers are all wonderful in getting kids involved. Any other questions? I'd like to thank my colleagues, and I'd like to thank you for coming to PTA. Thank you so much.